Hello, welcome to Studio Talks. My name's James Swift.
I'm Josh McNorton, and our guest today is...
And I'm Warren Millar, photographer, music photographer.
Hey Warren, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Good.
How are you doing within the lockdown? And do you have any advice for people?
Pretty quiet at the moment during lockdown because obviously there's no live music going on, so there's nothing really I can photograph. You know, we don't even know when it's going to start up. Obviously, yourselves at the studios are in the same situation, so we haven't really got a clue when it's all going to start up again. But hopefully, I can't see it being big venues this year, but hopefully early next year we may be able to start up again and get in the press pit again and start photographing gigs. Tips over lockdown. I'm quite lucky really because I work part-time anyway, so I work in retail, so I've been working since March anyway part-time, so I'm quite lucky, so that keeps myself busy to a certain extent. But I mean, all I can say is just keep yourself busy, find yourself something to do, whether that be jigsaws or whatever, because I know my partner's been doing lots of jigsaws, which has become quite adept at as well. So yeah, just keep yourself busy basically is what I'd say.
I've noticed like a lot of people I've talked to about it and said the jigsaws. I find that quite fun.
Yeah. I think my partner's done about 6 of them, but I get fed up after the first couple of pieces. I get fed up just finding the straight bits. Never mind finding ones.
No, same. I think I see 2 together and I go, I've done my job today.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. The last one she did actually before she started it, I just nicked a piece without her saying. So when she got to the end, she said, "There's a piece missing," so I just stuck it.
That's brilliant.
Evil genius, that.
Yeah, it is. That's how my brain works, I'm afraid.
Should have just never give it back and never let her finish it.
Yeah. Again, I've done it once, so I can't do it again.
How did you get involved in the studio?
It's quite a while ago. With the Lewis Edge live room. My son went to school with Lewis. Lewis used to call for him every day for school, so I knew Lewis quite well. And obviously, with the tragic events that happened with Lewis, Lewis's mum got in. She did the gig for the Lewis Edge at the studio, and she wanted me to go down and take some photographs. I'd done a little bit of gig photography before in the past, so I just went down to the studio and did those. I got talking to the likes of Louise and people who run it, Steve and that, and they just happened to mention that if ever you want to come down and photograph gigs at the studio, just come down. And to tell you the truth, I've never looked back since. James, was you involved in that gig? I'm sure you were.
I think I was involved with a couple of them, yeah. My first memory of you being there was when we did the photo shoot, when we had like different bands come in and we did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was involved with one of them. I can't remember which one, but I was involved with one of them.
I can't actually remember what year that Lewis Edge gig was, but it must have been
2013.
Maybe I was just about to say either 2013 or 2014, I think it was. So that's when I first got involved. I've never looked back since. I absolutely love the people that run it. It's just a beautiful place and just full of creative talent and energy. So I mean, that's why I love it. I think
definitely.
Unfortunately, I don't get down there as often as I could now, but I just love the place. It's a brilliant place.
So what inspired you to pursue photography?
I think it was when I was a teenager, really. I was just always interested in taking photographs with old film cameras, old Kodak Instamatics and stuff like that. The film side of photography, it's all digital now, so the film side of photography really fascinated me. And I even managed to persuade my mum, because I was living down West Bank at the time in one of the new houses down there, and persuaded my mum so I could take over a little sort of cupboard up on the top of the landing, and I changed that into a dark room. So I was developing and printing my own stuff. No one could get in the bath because there's always big 10x8 black and white prints being washed in the bath. So we never got baths. Only my prints got baths. Which is quite cool, really. But yeah, I mean, and I was probably a teenager then, which is many, many years ago. So yeah, and it was, of course, it was all film photography. So yeah, I started off with film photography, and I just loved the process of printing, taking photographs, developing film, and printing the images off. It was just one of those things. Just always loved it.
Oh, brilliant! I find it like I had a very similar conversation with my mum where it was, can I? How many times now I've turned around to her and said, can I borrow the whole downstairs so I can do a recording session? And every single time she's like, yeah, sure, I'll go upstairs and hide away upstairs.
Well, I play the guitar very badly, as you know, James. So sometimes I do get the guitar out as well, and then I seem to make everyone disappear from the house when I get the guitar out. So if I want some solitude, I just play the guitar and everyone disappears. I'm that bad.
See, I've noticed that whenever I play guitar, people all want to just interrupt. Like, they all go, "Are you playing it? Are you recording? Let me." Yeah.
What advice would you give to young people who want to do photography?
This is something I'm always getting asked, to tell you the truth. I can know if you want to do photography, just go out and take photographs. Just and it doesn't matter what camera you've got, even if it's your phone camera. Just go out and take photographs. I would certainly say study light, because basically photography, all you're doing is recording light. That's what you're doing when you take a photograph. It may be a nice sort of like landscape scene or a portrait or something like that, but all you're recording is the light that's falling onto that scene. So what I would say is study light, study how it affects, early morning what the light's like, midday what the light's like, and late at night or dusk or something like that what the light's out. They say there's 2 golden hours that's used for light, for good light, especially if you're doing landscapes. It is early hours of the morning, or just as dawn's coming up, and a couple of hours after that, and then just before you get dusk and a couple of hours before that. They always call those the golden hours for taking photographs. As far as, I've done a few talks on gig photography all over the place, all over the country actually, and people always ask me how you get involved in gig photography, and the way to do that is it's basically the way I started really. It's start small. Either find a local venue like the studio, or go to an open mic night at a pub. You're always welcome there, and you're always welcome with a camera as well. And it's good practice for you to get used to using your camera, because you've got to push your camera to the limits when you're doing gig photography, because the lighting's not good. How many times I've said to you, James, can you just put that lighting up a little bit?
Yeah.
And you know as well as I do how many times I've said that to you. But if you start on the local pub scene doing open mics, they'll let you in no problem at all. You'd start taking photographs of the local bands and stuff like that, and then tag them on Facebook, and you start getting bigger and bigger and bigger then, and you start getting into the bigger venues. So yeah, any advice, especially on gig photography, is start small, and only put out your good work. People look at my Facebook page and my website and everything, say, "Oh, amazing photographs, those were really great photographs." But for every good photograph you've got, I must have had about 6 or 7 that are totally out of focus, or totally overexposed, or totally underexposed. So only ever put out your best work, really, especially in photography. That's what I would recommend. But start small is the key, is the advice I would give.
How would you say that like photography has been affected by like social media, such as like Instagram and stuff like that?
I wouldn't. Well, since the dawn of digital photography, yeah. I mean, everyone is a photographer, and I don't like the way some people say, "Oh, you think you're a photographer just because you've got a digital camera." I don't like that. Anyone that takes a photograph, in my opinion, is a photographer. They are a photographer because they're taking photographs. Whether that's a professional photographer, semi-professional photographer, or just a hobbyist, it doesn't matter. You are a photographer. So I mean, the digital age has affected it quite a lot, because you see an awful lot more images going out. The thing is, you don't see many prints nowadays, all on social media. So it's all either on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, or some of the photography sites that are out there, like 500px and SmugMug and Flickr, like I said before. So yeah, but I'd love to see a lot more printed work, something you can actually hold, rather than something you switch your computer screen on and the image is there. So I always love printing my work. I've got about 3 massive portfolios at home of printed work as well. And as you know, I think it's still up there in the studio now, my exhibitions. So I absolutely adore printed work. So yeah, I mean, it has affected it a lot. It's a lot easier to take a photograph now. But I would still recommend people study photography and study exposure and what we call the exposure triangle, because there's 3 things that make up a photograph. That's your light, your exposure, and your ISO and stuff like that. So you need to study photography as well. That's how you start advancing. But yeah, it has affected it a lot. But yeah, more printed work. That's why.
I guess you kind of alluded to it earlier, but what would you say your musical background is with photography?
Well, starting at the studio, as I say, I did do a little bit of photography, a little bit of gig photography even before I did the studio. But it was starting at the studio, and I started off at the studio, and of course, then I was down there every gig virtually, just photographing it and giving the images to the studio to use for their purposes. From there onwards, it just snowballed until I was shooting for publications and stuff like that. I've shot for the Mail on Sunday and people like that now. So it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I suppose it depends. As a gig photographer as well, I suppose it depends on your musical taste, but I've got a very, very varied taste in music. I like anything from classical up to punk, really. Biggest loves were electronic music and stuff like that in the probably early 80s, mid 80s. Bands like Kraftwerk and people like that, who I actually saw last year at Blue Dot Festival, at Manny's called Blue Dot Festival. That's the first time I've ever seen them live as well. I mean, they don't do much on stage, you just walk up, stuck behind lecterns, but the music is incredible, and it was for the time anyway when they were doing it. But yeah, it all started off in the studio and snowballed from there. So really what I'm trying to say is I can't really thank the studio enough, because that's really kick-started my career, or my semi-career as a gig photographer. So yeah, that's where it all started off.
I would say the on the other side of that, I mean, I didn't know anyone who did photography before you started doing photography there, and since then, I mean, we've had like
Jamie,
Jamie, and we've had Colin who's come forward and started doing it, and I really think that it was you and Dick started that round at the studio.
Yeah, well, it's nice. It's nice for me to go to the studio when I can get down there now and see other photographers in there doing their stuff. I know Colin as well. I can't remember who else has been down there, but yeah. It's nice to see him down there and getting the cameras out and having a go as well, doing it. I mean, I've got a passion for music anyway. I love music anyway. I've got a passion for photography. So I'm on cloud nine. I'm doing both the things I love, so it's great.
What is it like to plan your workshop event, and how do you find teaching it?
I love doing the workshops that I do for Photaholics in the studio. I haven't done one for a while, actually. I have to try and get one up and running again. But it's planning it is quite easy, because I try to always get a local band. I think I've had a couple of local bands. I've had Zen Project. Faster Than Bulls actually did the first one.
I remember Faster Than Bulls.
Yeah, which weren't a local. Well, I say not local. They're from Chorley Way. I think Faster Than Bulls did the first one. Zen Project did one. Scarlet, a band I really like. Jesse, who I used to work with anyway. I think Yabo did one as well, didn't he?
They did, yeah.
4 or 5 there. Quite easy getting a band. It's getting people that are interested in doing it to attend, and then just basically I've got it all down on a PowerPoint presentation. So what we do is, James has been there when I've been doing them. We have like a sort of like classroom session in the morning where I go over how I take gig photographs on the screen in the gallery at the studio, and then the afternoon is just the band doing a full set as they would do in any sort of gig or any sort of festival, and I have Steve on the sound, James on the lighting. And the lighting's changing all the time, so they have to get used to that. They have to get used to how the band move about on stage. So it's great for them, and I really love doing them. I'll have to try and organise another one pretty soon, as I can. Obviously, once this lockdown's over. But for me, it's a labour of love. It's not hard work at all. Even doing the talk in the morning, once I get talking about photography, the problem is you probably can't shut me up, to tell you the truth. Other things, if you ask me to talk about what I do as a part-time job and stuff like that, I'd probably talk for about 2 minutes and I get fed up. But talking about photography, because it's a passion, I'll not shut up unless you tell me to shut up. But the workshops are brilliant, and I love doing them.
The thing I really like about them is, just kind of watching from the outside of doing the lights, I love watching the people just run around and finding like creative ways to take a picture, if that makes sense, because you get a
Yeah.
lot of enthusiasm out of the like people who are learning from it.
9 times out of 10, it's all about what angle you take the photograph of, where you take the photograph. So you know, you can get 10 shots of a band straight on, no problem. But it's looking for that sort of creative angle and that sort of creative shot that'll make your shot stand out from others. And I'm always doing that, even when I'm in a busy press pit at festivals. I'm always rushing to a different part of it, because I mean, at festivals you only get the first 3 songs, and then we're chucked out the press pit, and bigger gigs as well. So you've got to use those first 3 songs to get as many angles and to get as many different pictures as you can, and that's a bit of a nightmare sometimes. But this is what I teach them when they come onto my workshops: is, you know, try and get different angles and different shots, even if it means just, because I do allow them on stage as well when we're doing these gig photography workshops, so they can go on stage and get really good close-ups of the guitarist or the drummers or the singers or whatever. You wouldn't normally be able to do that, but I allow them to do that, to see what sort of creative juices they can get flowing and see what sort of creative images they can make. So yeah, I agree with you with that, James. I love watching them all running around trying to get different creative angles and stuff like that.
Definitely.
And they always come up with, you know,
you do get a lot of enthusiasm out of them.
Yeah. Afterwards as well, if we have time, depending on how long the band play for, we can try and get some pictures up, or we try and have a look at some pictures and say, oh, yeah, that's great, and maybe just change it here or change it there or whatever. But yeah, it's a lovely thing about doing those workshops. It's just the creative that comes out of it, and some of the images you see later, I think, wow, they're really great, and a lot of them are as well.
So where can people find you online, find your work online?
Oh, most social media sites. So I'm on Facebook, but don't forget it's Millar with an AR, not ER.
Do you know what? When I sent you the invitation yesterday, I had like a moment of, have I done AR or ER? I'd done it right, but like I had a moment of, oh my god.
No worry, I'd have slapped you if you got it wrong. But yeah, it's Millar AR. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. And I've got my own website as well, which is on SmugMug. If you just type in Warren Millar Photography in SmugMug, you'll see me. Or type in Warren Millar on Facebook, you'll find me. And yeah, if anyone's wanting to start off in gig photography, or just want to start off in photography as general photography, just message me on Facebook or anything like that, or any of my social media sites, or email me. All my emails addresses are on there as well. So yeah. I always like to try and help people up the ladder of photography. It's one thing that I love doing, is passing on what I know to others. And if someone asks me a question I don't know, I'll always try and find out anyway. So yeah, most social media sites, Warren Millar, MILLAR.
Brilliant. Thank you for doing this with us. It's been great.
My pleasure, James. No problem at all. No problem at all.
I'll see you soon.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Josh.